Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Brian. I'm the host of the Left of Greg show. You're going to be watching the video version of our audio podcast. Please, guys, if you like the video, like it, subscribe to the channel. There's going to be more content on there if you're already a subscriber, and a better way for us to get you guys some more stuff. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below. Check out our links down below to get a hold of us and to actually find out more places where you can get more information about this. Please like and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook at HBPRNA. Remember, all these cases that we discuss and all the discussions that we have are through the lenses of what we call human behavior, pattern recognition, and analysis. So please like it, share it, tell your friends about it, and we hope you enjoy the show. Thanks.
Okay, now we're live on Facebook, buddy.
All right, Greg. So we will go ahead and get started this morning. First of all, good morning and happy birthday, or happy Monday, happy birthday. I was reading something else from someone. Apologize on that. Happy Monday.
Well, it's somebody's birthday, hopefully.
I don't know where I was going with that. So today's topic, we're going to jump into a few areas, but it kind of generally falls around the theme of what people say as fake it till you make it, right? Because with any of these things, there's two sides of the coin. In some instances, maybe that's a good thing or that can work. And then sometimes, like we always say in our line of work, this isn't something you can fake it. Sorry, you either know what you're doing or don't. But what prompted this idea, which I then called you this morning and said, hey, let's get on one. I got a great idea. Is just a funny kind of meme that was going around that I saw. And the context behind it is someone sitting in a job interview, right? And the person giving the interview says, hey, you're asking for a pretty high salary for someone without any experience. And the person who's being interviewed says, well, this job is going to be super hard since I don't know what I'm doing.
There you
And
go.
I thought that was a perfect way to kind of start off, because we heard that a lot, fake it till you make it, or act like you are that person, or model what that is. And I think in some ways that can be a good thing, right? Especially when dealing with different emotional issues, or there's different psychological reasons and studies that say, hey, that's actually a good thing, the power of positive thinking, and that, but it doesn't apply everywhere, right? It certainly doesn't apply in a lot, and especially when you get into subject matter expertise or opinion-based testimony, or
Right.
who's the value of what someone's contributing, right? So maybe I have an opinion on a subject, but this is the first time I'm ever hearing about it. What is that compared to someone who's been studying it their whole life? And I just think that there's a good way to balance it in there. So that's kind of where the topic's gonna start at, Greg. Is that good? Sorry to kind of ambush you after a long.
I enjoy ambush.
We had
Exactly.
last week, and still recovering from that.
No, that's fair to say.
And bourbon, I guess.
Big week in Nashville, and got home late Saturday.
Yeah.
Spent all day Sunday, stringing Christmas lights to try to figure out where they end, meaning have no idea where all this voluminous information is going.
Yeah.
And Dark 30 call from Marin going, Eureka, which is always fun. But it's a great topic, Brian, because I like where you're going based on the fact that you and I recently had a discussion about how today it's almost more acceptable to approach things like an attorney rather than a scientist, where
Right.
you said opinion-based testimony, and you know what? And not a lot of validity to that unless you're the owl and you're figuring out how many licks it takes to get to the center of that Tootsie Roll.
It's 3.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
3.
But the idea there, Brian, is the standard of subject matter expertise. It's lofty, and it's lofty for a reason, And nowadays it's almost that, I just briefly, and I'll let you get back to fine tuning it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that one article, and I think it was USA Today or whatever paper, because we're always in a hotel going somewhere, and it had President Trump's, our current president's opinion on something, and right next to it, it had Greta Thunberg's opinion. And no offense, I don't care who you love or who you hate or what you think about anybody, but equally valuing those opinions speaks to the heart of how this is problematic. They're not equally weighted. Do you get what I'm trying to say? It takes a long time to get some, and sometimes it's sour grapes where somebody makes a comment. But you can't just say, hey, listen, this is all equal. It really isn't.
Right. So to at least frame it a little bit, in some areas of, given that situation of like a new job or a new place that you're in, and
Hmm.
sometimes just going, yeah, I'm just going to act like I belong here. And maybe because I don't have the confidence, right? Because
Right.
it's a new job, right? You don't know anyone. Maybe you don't know everything that you're supposed to do. Even if you do have experience in that, right? There's still going to be a learning curve. People get nervous about that. So I think in terms of looking at it as a positive thought process to instill confidence so that you can jump in and learn. I'm all for that, right? Hey, act like you belong there. You know it, you know what you're doing. But but that's given that you have the required skills, the required
Yeah.
experience to be at that location at that time, not just you're thrown into a completely different situation you've
You
never been in
walk in,
before and then
hey,
try to figure it out. So
door
I
was
like
unlocked.
the idea, of course, in terms of hey, hey, fake it till you make it. Act as if you own. Act as if you know what you're doing. Act as if you belong there. That those can be very beneficial. And the problem with it is when people do that and then they go, hey, you know what? That worked. I didn't have a clue. They're 6 months into a job or a year later and they're nailing it, right? They're a stud on the team. They're, hitting their numbers. They're going beyond. Everyone's loving it. And then they go, hey, look, like, I'm not going to lie. When I first showed up here, I had no idea what I was doing, but I just acted like I did and you all accepted me. And then that allowed me to actually learn what was going on. So we now then go, hey, it worked, right? And there's a million books written about it. There's plenty of motivational quotes and YouTube videos of YouTube professors and gurus and stuff on there telling you, hey, that's what you got to do. And I think that in certain situations, that is a great way to approach things. However, when you're getting into
However,
however, but let me hold right there because I think, like you just brought up, uh, going into a situation or understanding a new domain or a new topic, something that's heavily nuanced and very complicated, you can't have that same mentality, right? Into a I can't walk into the international meeting of the top neuroscientists in the world and act like I belong there and act like I'm a neuroscientist and have the same way
no,
of
you're going
opinion
to be
because
found out.
I'm not.
You
Well, I'm
know.
going to be found out, and I don't rate to do that, right? I don't have the training and education and experience that that person has. So why would I think I come in there? So I just
Yeah.
think in the appropriate context, it's okay. Because now you just brought up something that you had mentioned on a previous podcast when looking at information, and I thought it was a great way to sum it up. Where you said, "Hey, how are you approaching this? Are you approaching this like a lawyer or like a scientist?" And that's not a
Right.
knock or that's not a pro or con on either one, right? Each one is used differently. Meaning, if you're taking a scientific approach to it, it's going to be clinical. I have to use
Yes.
artifacts and evidence in support of a reasonable conclusion. All right. Now, lawyer is a little bit different. A lawyer still has to understand all of those things, yes, and then go, all right, how do I spin this to
Right.
get
But
the
let me.
best, right? You get what I'm
Yeah, yeah,
saying?
yeah. But
They're on.
let me give you an opinion of that, Brian. So and again here I'm going to resort to opinion-based testimony, but I'm kind of uniquely qualified on this because I watch TV and I like watching a lot of movies. So there's a Clint Eastwood movie when one of the Dirty Harrys, and I don't remember which one, and there's a plane that's getting hijacked that was really big in the 70s, folks. You have to take a look at that. And the guy, take us to Cuba, whatever else. And so Clint Eastwood happens to be at the airport. Hey, what's the hubbub? And so he puts on a hat, puts on a jacket, gets out on the plane. He's the pilot that's going to fly him there. And man, he's revving engines and the engine's going and everything else. And the guy goes, hey, take off, take off. Why aren't you taking off? He goes, because I have no idea what I'm doing. All he wanted to do is buffalo his way onto the plane, and then he, beats up the guys and wins. Brian, I hope to God that the next time I'm on Delta United, we don't have Frank Abagnale walking on, sitting down, and trying to
Right.
fake it till he makes it.
Right.
That's not where I want to be when that lawn dart comes burning in. Now, the opposite side of that, and let me give you a balancing act here. I do not remember the gentleman's name offhand, but do you remember the guy that killed the people on the subway? Not the There was a black male and there was a white male. The white male, he thought that the people were going to mug him, so he shot everybody, right?
Yeah.
But this was a black male, that actually walked down and killed a number of people on the subway at a later time, a different time. And I'll think of the name, folks. Look it up on the site. But the point being is that he killed a number of people, and now he's in his criminal trial. He fires his defense attorney, says, "I don't need an attorney. I'm going to act as my own." And we all know what that means. When you act as your own, you're going to be an idiot up there,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to get convicted and be on death
The
row.
prosecution loves to see that, I'm guessing.
He did great. He was a nutcase, and he was a murderer. Okay, but very quickly he started assimilating the lexicon and started sounding like an attorney. And then he started mimicking the attorneys and objecting, and then when the judge said you can't just say object, you have to say object, and then, say what cause, that prejudicial, let's say, for example, or whatever. And he started catching on. By the second week in trial, everybody said you would not have known that he didn't go to law school. He was making objections, written objections. He was calling his own witnesses, doing all this other stuff. So that's what I mean specifically when I say the attorney, because we've all seen, and I have an inordinately seen an amount of attorneys that weren't worth their juice, that might have a diploma, that got up and literally were just bouncing. They were the spinning top until they found a groove that they were at, and then they repeated their behavior. I think you could say there was a last leg to that stool. How many times you've been in a Denny's late night after a bar? Wait a minute, I'm getting too personal. Sorry. Begging in a Denny's after the bar. And you hear somebody talking about their police or military experience.
Yeah.
And if you are a subject matter expert or even purport yourself to be, you can see through that in just moments.
Right.
And bring it full circle. Anybody that's got a phone now is a journalist. And these journos, most of them blow, Brian.
Well,
I'm seeing these articles and the stuff they're downloading. I'm going, holy crap, these guys aren't linking two complete thoughts together. So that's my take.
No, and that's good. You brought in the example of the guy testifying for himself, and I know what's his name? Ted Bundy didn't, but when he was up there talking to the judge and everyone, you would have thought he was an experienced attorney comfortable in a courtroom. But that was also because he's a psychopath, right?
Pathological. But what did the attorney? What did the judge say?
Oh,
do you remember when the judge walked over?
The judge gave him you would have made a great attorney, and I think that.
Sorry, I got to do this.
Yeah. Hey, I'm sorry, I got to put you away for the rest of your life, and I know you made a few mistakes. He completely had taken the judge and flipped him around exactly like that. Instead of being the one to uphold the standards of the court, was now laughing and joking along with a guy who had killed a lot of people, a lot more than he even had ended up admitting to, I think.
Yep.
And then he's just a horrible, horrible human being. One of the way that you're talking about, statistically insignificant number of these people exist, but here's one of them, and it's so blatantly obvious and true, and you're treating him like he's a nice gentleman. But I think that goes into kind of where I was going with a lot of this. Is this really is ego driven, right?
Right. And there's a fine line. What you said was everything you said is correct, but there's a fine line between the psychological advantages of self-help when you're saying I can get through this, I can do this, and being an egomaniacal lunatic.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? That's just throwing. That looks good on a resume. You know?
No. Yeah, and that's what I mean is that these aren't blanket ideas, blanket concepts, a blanket mindset of how to approach everything. No, that's not. Each one of these things that come out is for a specific time at a specific place for a specific purpose, right? So that type of thinking does work in those specific situations, but you can't then apply that everywhere and go, well, now I'm a geologist, and that rock formation isn't rocks. It's a tree that was cut down by giants that used to exist 1,000 years ago. And you can
So you've been watching the Learning Channel?
Yeah, it was a recent
discovery
Facebook post that someone sent me, and I punched myself in the face for 10 minutes and then laughed. But but that's what it gets into. So, and the reason why I brought up ego, and if those listening, it's a term where we're all humans. All of us are very egocentric people, right? It doesn't necessarily, it's not a negative. I'm not approaching it from negative, like, oh, look at the ego on you. Look, we all get offended and sad when we shouldn't, and this and that. Like, we all.
It's a survival mechanism.
Yeah,
it's clearly on board for our survival.
From some more than others, but that's kind of when it gets into, and that goes into the attorney versus scientist, and how you become kind of a subject matter expert, right, at something, at anything. Right? Because we all want to believe, especially you brought up the military and law enforcement thing. Well, once I get taught something, once I get a little bit of training, and like I'm so excited, I learned a new skill set and I want to go tell everyone about it, and oh look, this is really difficult, and
Yep.
blah blah blah, like I can do this and I can do that. It was like I heard a I heard a drunk Marine yell at a guy that he could kill people from 500 yards away because he had just finished an iron sights rifle call, and you're like,
Boy,
okay,
that
okay,
sets
buddy,
him apart.
okay, buddy, like,
Right.
good job, good job, you shot expert, awesome. But meeting, we equate that, and I think a lot of that comes into ego as well, and that fake it till you make it can kind of feed that, right? It can kind of feed the beast a little bit. To now, if I start faking it and I continue to make it, then I'm going to keep faking it and I'm going to keep making it, and that's going to keep going, right, until some point now I'm this subject matter expert, right? And
Yes.
I think that's my big problem with a lot of these sayings or these ways to look at it is look, it's for a specific time at a specific place. And I know we get into that a lot with anything that we do, where we say, hey, this means this at this exact time,
Right.
and then someone tries to take that and go, oh well, over here that would be the same thing, right? And you're going to go, no, that's a completely different situation. So, what does that take? Like, because I know I brought up the term, we all give opinion-based testimony in our own
Yes.
life and our own social media posts. Yes. So I get to look at something and go, well, I'm entitled to my own opinion. It's like, yes, that's right. We have those rights guaranteed to us, and you can actually express it openly too, because we have an amazing Bill of Rights in this country, and we get to do that. So how do I use that? How do I stop myself, Greg,
No,
from
no,
going
don't stop yourself. I think have a voyage of discovery. So
a
you
voyage of
think, yeah,
discovery?
we're
That's,
going to go on
yeah,
a little voyage of discovery.
I
So
like that.
take the phone book and just randomly pick. Is there phone books anymore? I'm so old. And
Probably
take your
not.
rotary dial. Put a nickel in the machine, and just shut up, you bastards. So what I'm saying is, listen,
Call the
you
operator, right?
yes, you
That's
just said connect me with 294
yeah.
Prescott 294. No, so what you just said is very, very enlightening to me. So you have your opinion and you're entitled to it. So I have my opinion, and John has his opinion, and Bill has his opinion, and Sharon and Shelley, they both have their opinion. We're all sitting in the same room, and we just met through the phone book gig. All these people walking down a gosh damn aisle in a store. Do they have malls anymore? In a mall, and a guy says, hey, for $5, we want to ask you a couple of questions. Everybody come in here. So all the people go in and they sit in their seats, and they said, okay, everybody here has an opinion and they're equally weighted. Well, that's where the train just went off the tracks and crashed and burned. Brian, just because you have an opinion doesn't mean your opinion's right. And just because there's 2 or 5 people in a room doesn't mean 2 or 3 or 5 of them have equal opinions. What happens is something like age, where you grew up, the experiences that you had, whether you're married, whether you had kids, whether you had a divorce or whether you had 9 divorces, no pun intended, whether you're a hopeless alcoholic that beats your wife. Oh my gosh, I got to get off of Brian today. And whatever it is, come home, kick the dog. But the idea is that, follow me here, you are a unique little snowflake, but that doesn't mean you're
Thank
equal
you.
to everybody else. And in the Constitution and laws and everything says we're all created equally. Yes, we're all created equally, but when it comes to testifying, or when it comes to giving your opinion, or when it comes to being a scientist, you don't want to be one slide deep, and you don't want to be the second grade trained in the third grade, because in those instances, everything's magic, Brian. When you learned everything that's on
Right.
like a PowerPoint slide, and you're up there and you're talking about it, that's great until the guy that wrote that slide comes up and goes, okay, so what's the tensile strength of, titanium or whatever.
Yeah.
Now you don't know that. So don't fight out of your league. If you are a unique little snowflake, understand what it is that you know, and then ask questions about it, and be humble enough to say, I really don't know that. Now you've been with me a long time. I've been with you. You understand that I'm the biggest egotist in the world, but if I'm in a group and I hear a comment, I hear a word, or somebody says something, I'll raise my hand and say, I don't understand
What
that.
does that mean?
Can you
Yeah.
explain it? What does that mean in this context?
Yeah.
You know why? Because I want to learn, rather than huff and sit back and disagree with something because I'm uncomfortable with the fact that I don't have knowledge on that topic. They're subject matter experts for a reason. The reason that word is in the dictionary is because there's certain people are better. I love skating, and I played hockey in the a third of my life. I don't fancy that I can go out and still do it, and I don't think I could go out for the Nordiques. You get what I'm saying? So balance that fragile ecosystem with the reality of the situation, and it's not taken away from you. I can't fly, Brian. I'd like to imagine that I could.
Yeah,
You
no,
know what I'm trying to say?
it took me, yeah, no, I did the same thing with trying to dunk a basketball all the way
There
up
you
until
go.
I was like probably 30, early 30s. I was doing a lot of plyometric stuff at the time, so I got to the point where I could touch the rim. I'm 5'10",
I don't even
so
know what plyometric is, but
I
that
could,
was really cool because some of our people are writing that down and saying next time somebody asks them, they're plyometric.
yeah, so I could touch the rim, and then immediately thought like, oh man, it must not be like I've got what, another 6 months of keep doing at this where I can dunk a basketball. Well, first of all, I can't even palm a basketball. Second of all, you have to get your hands so much higher. And I was like, wow, this is okay, this is never gonna happen. This is something I can write
Were you
off.
like
But
in your driveway? You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? With one of those, the little play
with the
school ones?
adjustable,
That's cool.
the
I could do
adjustable.
that.
No, but the same thing. It was like, all right, I had to learn like, oh, this is gonna. I'm biologically, I was not meant to do this.
Yep.
Right, this is
Yep.
just not gonna happen in my wheelhouse. I was like using that one, but on one of the, I kind of want to get this more. We just talked about it at the beginning, but and we came up on a previous podcast when you kind of said, you know, the attorney versus the
Yes.
scientist, and I like that analogy because, like anything, you can take it in a few different ways, right?
Yep.
On what you mean by that. But I'd love for you to kind of elaborate
Sure.
on what specifically you mean when you say, you know, attorney versus scientist, because it's both a one, it's a, you have a level of training and education behind it, right? And but it's two different sort of ways of thinking, right?
Yep. So you have sometimes, and this is so police work and lawyer oriented and judicial system. I hate to do that, so I'll try to contrive something outside of that while I'm talking. uh, there are legal standards, Brian, and the more that you work the road, the better you understand the comparisons. So I'll tell you right now, I would challenge the coppers that are in the audience. There's still police chiefs, there's still attorneys, there's still judges that believe probable cause and reasonable suspicion are the same thing,
Yeah.
and they're completely different standards. And they have a list of they're very similar. And to the person on the street, if I described them right now, they'd go, that sounds like the same thing. But as a legal standard, Brian, they're completely different. And so you say a term like under color of law when an agency or a person is acting with the auspices that they've been sworn into a position, whether they're in uniform or not. The things they say matter differently to that community and to that officer, right? So then somebody is going to say, well, you can't do that or you can't say that. Well, actually, by the position I'm in right now, I can do that. And
Right.
and like for example, a police officer has more power than like the Senate and the judiciary branch and everybody else because they can determine life or death and end the due process clause by shooting you, right? Or escalating a level of force to where you die. So what happens is we think the average human being thinks that everything's okay. I'm here. I've got my ticket. I get entry. And life isn't really like that. Life is wonderful. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. I get that. But why would we go to school if somebody didn't know more? And why is there a difference between a teacher and a tenured professor? Because as life comes at you, there's certain amounts of information that you may know better than somebody else. And you brought up a great one that I didn't even consider: human performance.
Yeah.
While I understand running, do you get what I'm trying to say? Clearly, my arms move faster than yours, Brian, but I don't
That
go any faster. I'm not going to fancy myself as a runner. But we just have to put things in perspective. That when it comes to like science and oxygen and hydrogen and molecules, there's something I can point at that go together, and they always go together the same way. And if there's anomalies, there's a special rule that goes along with that. Life, not so much. People grow up and they think that they have the same stake in life and the same opportunities as everybody else. And when they find out they don't, instead of trying to fix it the proper way, then we sometimes get angry. Sean Clemens just sent me that article about a guy that drove all the way from what it was, I think it was Michigan to Texas to kill the
oh
guy
yeah.
because he was angry and drove
Yeah.
all the way back. We get stuff like that. When we don't understand stuff, Brian, it's easy to get angry first. It's easy to get disappointed
Well,
or turn your back on the rest of society and say, "Oh, you bastards dropped me," because I wasn't the same.
no, and so that kind of goes back to the lawyer versus the scientist, right? So you know, if I'm approaching something, because a lot of people, and this is what some people have asked me, we get it asked when we're in person, and I get emails. It's like, well, how do I conceptualize what you're talking about? Meaning,
Yeah,
how do I actually use it when I'm reading an article or watching a movie or listening to a story just in real time to sit there and go, wait a minute here. How am I supposed to filter or decipher this information? Because I've seen some stuff where I'm like, wow, the way they presented this looks so believable, but no, the earth isn't flat. So I know it's complete bullshit.
I get it.
So, but you get what I'm saying? It's like, how do
Yeah.
I compete against that at a
So
personal level? Like, go ahead.
so there's a caper, and I won't get into the weeds on the caper, but if you look it up, you'll get a lot smarter, and learning is the key to so much. But a copper sees a car pull into a 7-Eleven, let's call it, and he sees a guy bounce out and run inside. Guy's only there for a couple of minutes. Guy comes running outside, peels off. Car goes to another convenience store, sees it pull up hastily, leaves the door open. The guy runs inside. So the copper says, "This is frippery, man. I got a crime in progress. This guy just robbed the last two places." So confirmation bias takes over. The police officer stops the guy, and the guy goes, "Look, I'm a diabetic, and if I don't get a glass of orange juice in a few minutes, I'm going to go into shock and I'm going to die." The copper says, "Hold the mouth. Let me see some ID." And now a fight incurs. Another copper comes up and he goes, "What's the matter? The guy's fighting with me. He won't give it to me." And now it escalates, and they got the guy in a 3-point restraint and everything else. Listen, anybody that's on the cop side says, "You don't know." Well, I do know. So shut up and sit down for a minute. The idea is confirmation bias made me see what I wanted to see. And I didn't take the perspective because he's the offender and I'm the cop and I got the badge. Now, I'm not bashing on cops. So I'll give you the flip side to that, Brian. That turned into horrible case law. And now
Yep.
there's a whole bunch of rules you got to follow because the
Yeah.
guy never considered an alternative. So yesterday, Shell and I, and it's gosh damn so hot in the wind, and we got the smokes from all the fires that you guys are starting. I should sue you bastards.
Yeah. We're taking water from you from the Colorado River and sending
exactly.
you our smoke from our fires.
And hopefully nobody's injured because it's a terrible situation.
Yeah.
But so we're watching this show, and this older guy and this young kid. It was a really bizarre relationship, and if I lived in that community, I'd be looking into that. And they're going to an abandoned church, and it's not a church if it's abandoned. It's an abandoned building, if you know what I'm talking about. And they're searching around, and they're looking for evil. Okay, well,
okay.
If you're looking for evil,
I know how to do that.
So they get to a broken mirror, and the announcer, and it's not Leonard Nimoy for a change, the announcer goes, "We all know that mirrors are portals from the underworld." Brian, I never knew that.
I didn't know that either. I didn't know that either.
So I threw all my mirrors out towards Lanny's house.
But before you go any farther, hang on. But that's a perfect example of hey, we all know. So now if I'm watching, but now if I'm watching and I don't know, I go, oh fuck, I'm supposed to know that. So now I know it.
Right. So now you're faking it till you make it.
Yep.
So the next guy comes up, like you urinate, and then they got the mirror in the men's bathroom, and you go, that's a portal to hell, or whatever. So
I'll try that in the airport next time.
Yeah, try that next time and go, how about these? You'll get the same response. So the guy's taking a picture, movie picture, not to, like, I'm not, that old RKO, but he's taking a picture into the mirror and he goes, "Holy crap, look, there's a face in the mirror." And I'm crying, I'm laughing so hard because what happens is parallax and the distance from the mirror and the light shining on it is creating two images, and it's his image, inset on the other image. So the other guy walks up and it's like, fuck, there's another one. And so they're calling this out like, oh my God, this is what's going to, Brian, you see what you want to see in those situations. Now, what happened? Their adrenal cortex is pumping. It's a little bit scary. It was a little bit hot. You have more than one people. A situation takes that on. Now, a scientist is going to slow that down, and he's going to say, hold on, these are the things that happen. A lawyer's going to go, yes, but Sergeant Williams, isn't it possible that there was a demon in that mirror? No, sir, there wasn't. So you're saying it's not possible because you're a Christian, but if you were a Satanist, you asking me to speculate? You get what I'm trying to say? He's got to put a spin on it, and he don't care how outlandish it is.
Well,
because if one of those juries goes, I could see that, his guy's off, Brian. So
that's creating that explanatory storyline and creating doubt, right? Because that goes into I love the argument. Well, you can't prove that it wasn't a ghost. It's like, what?
There's actually a scientific answer now, Brian, where it says of all the UFOs, if scientifically, if we do an algorithm, if they're unexplained and one of them can't be explained, that therefore that proves the theory. No, it doesn't. It doesn't prove shit. What it is you saw something you can't explain. But let's tie that back into human performance or
Yeah,
human behavior.
yeah,
Um, who? Let me depose you for a second. Who's the worst witness in the world?
an eyeball witness.
Why is an eyeball witness the worst witness? Because all of our strengths and fears and trepidations, Brian, come in and start changing the picture. And we already know that reality and fantasy are the same to the human brain. So I can be testifying legally and ethically saying, yes, this is what I think is going on, but my brain is showing me a bill of goods, Brian, that just isn't true. So we
Yeah,
have to be careful not to run blindly into and accept a conclusion that's not bound in science.
yeah, and that can be that I feel like that gets more and more difficult to do on an everyday level
Mm-hmm.
because of how well produced information is now, right?
Oh, you're
Um,
exactly right.
because we're now kind of conditioned to that. You can see that stuff with movies and documentary stuff or whatever. Like when you put something together, really, I mean that's what it is. It's building a case, right? And
You're
saying
exactly right.
any documentary is meant to portray what the person making it wanted to portray, right? So
Yeah.
it's not going to show you. It generally doesn't show you the other side of it. It's like your favorite one, the making of murder, the guy from Wisconsin.
Oh Lord.
I think they
Yeah.
made, I don't know, I think they did
Well,
two,
Brandon
maybe three
Dassey's
seasons.
still in
Yeah.
jail, so kind of
So
think he really lied.
so it's I mean that's one of the things that we often forget when it is produced really well, and when you put out those morsels of information in what seems like a logical manner, like
Yes,
it leads to that confirmation bias very easily. So you just have to remember when you're
because
watching
you're
these.
being led. What does your
Well,
brain
right.
what does your brain want more than anything else? Your brain wants to make order out of
Yeah.
chaos. Not you, Hennessy. No,
Yeah.
but your brain or Jameson,
Jameson.
I'm sorry, whichever. Your brain wants to make order out of chaos, right? So the Sudoku or the crossword or any of
Yep.
those other stuff
Yep.
appeal to us.
That's why it
What's the
works.
thing? The Rubik's cube.
Yep.
Those kind of things are fun to us. The two horseshoes, you go to the dude
Yeah.
ranch and they're like, and then a guy takes them apart and it's, hey, Penn and Teller. The reason because of that is because our brain has to make order out of chaos. And we, because we're egotistical, think that we're in on it.
Yeah.
And we think that we saw something and we understand it. So we come up with this storyline, and then all of a sudden somebody comes up and goes, yeah, but that's not exactly right. A scientist will say, well, it was swamp gas, and that these swamp gases, the pond actually turns upside down, and now all those things are released, and that's why you saw this big glowy thing. And you go, wow, never thought of that. Yeah, you never thought of it. Now the local says, I saw it in my headlights,
I
and it
know
was
what I
some kind
saw.
of amphibious. Do you see what I'm
I
trying to
know
say?
what I saw.
And it's Collier, right? And he's willing to go to bat for the furry skunk ape that stole his baby.
Yeah.
So you can't fight that
That's a different case with
because the
Collier.
perception is the reality. Well, not
I
just
think
on Collier,
I think he's
the
looking
shaved
for
ape.
his father, but
Exactly.
he's looking for his long lost family in the woods.
Exactly.
No, but that's a it's a good explanation of how and why these things occur, right? Meaning, how do I get led down this path of
Yes.
then finding out? And this is with
Because you're not being a jerk. You're
no
not
no no,
lying.
and
Even
that's
when Loch Ness, even when the
yeah.
guy that created the Loch Ness monster in the video on his deathbed said it was all a hoax, just like the Bigfoot. It's all a hoax. What
Well
did
then,
people say?
well that's
The
when they come
government
in.
made
That
him do that
they
film.
that's what they want you to believe, Greg. The infamous they.
Hey,
So no,
oh,
but
spot on, buddy.
you brought it up right there in that comment, was that it's not that sometimes we don't mean to, or we don't want to. Like my friend, you tell me a compelling story, Greg, and I go, damn, that's messed up, or holy crap, I didn't believe that. Then I tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and they tell
Oh
two
my
friends,
God, that's
and then
hilarious
the
and
story grows.
racist, but hilarious.
Yeah, well, but that's what I'm saying is like it grows and grows and grows, and I go,
Right.
holy cow, like I didn't know about that that this is a very an emotional topic, so
But
now
what
I'm
stories do that? Stories
well,
that are low on facts and titillating and scintillating, right? And might have a little bit of a
high end
video
emotional
thrown in.
comment
Do you see what I'm
content.
saying? Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're exactly right. So you have those. And Brian, I'll tell you right now, when we start talking science, people tune out.
Yeah.
But if we started talking about the other beard, uh, uh, and how you groom that, if you know what I'm saying, the manscaper,
It's
people will tune back in, especially
right.
around where you live.
Right. No, I think that comes into, the sensationalizing of the
Yes.
information always makes it more titillating and exciting. I don't know if I can
Yeah,
say
but you
that,
can't do that. Do you remember
but
the Simpsons episode? We live, folks, on Family Guy and the Simpsons
Simpsons.
and
Yeah, well, it was
cartoons
Simpsons then
more than
Family Guy.
reality.
Yeah.
Lisa fell in love with her teacher, and I think he was portrayed by like Dustin Hoffman. It was a really great thing, and he was playing Henry David Thoreau in one, and in the other he was Lincoln, and then he was Mary Shelley. And you, Brian, would love to think that your daughter's teachers are that elastic, that they have
Right.
all of those. And alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio, that they can handle a crowd. And Brian, we've been through some tier
Yeah.
one operators who are the best, and I wouldn't want to be at the end of their muzzle, right? But they couldn't teach your way out of the room. So don't purport that they're equal. Some people are very smart and can't teach it. Some people, are great actors, but when it comes to it, they're only a slide deep. That's America. That's the world. That's humans, and it's okay to be that way. That's what makes us different and exciting.
Yeah, no, and this kind of that adds to another of someone can be an expert or well informed or really good in one area, and then they're going to voice their opinion in another, and it doesn't deserve
Step out of
equal
their
weight,
lane.
right?
So
And
hold on. Let me
that's
give you an example of that, and then you give one. So a good friend that we know that's short and angry and looks like Ho Chi Minh. Do you get what I'm saying in real time? Okay, and he does, folks. This is not cultural appropriation. Okay, so there was a elk hung up in a fence, and the elk couldn't get out of the fence, and the elk had to be killed. Okay, so this person drove up and comes running in the house and says, "Do you have?" And he was very specific about the weapon and the caliber and even the action that he wanted to go down and kill this elk. And I said, no, but I got this. Nah, it's not going to do it. I go, it'll do it. No stranger to murder, death, kill. This is going to do fine because it's all about shot placement. I could take a knife down and we could do it that way. This will be much more clinical. No, F it. I'm out of here. Got into an argument. We didn't talk for weeks. We didn't talk for like 5 weeks. So the elk finally died. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And,
yeah,
and thank God I didn't have to watch it. But the idea was this guy reloads. He's a genius. He grew up with Fred Bear. Knows everything about internal, external, terminal ballistics on every weapon. Brian, if you asked for foot-pounds per second, he'd be able
yeah,
to whip them
he'd
out.
one of the, yeah,
But when I challenged him with this will do just as good, Brian, I could have taken a frying pan down. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? The elk was in trouble and I wanted to do it. But guess what? He was led to believe that his little bocce ball of knowledge was much more important than importing knowledge or comparing knowledge with somebody else. That's being a dick. That's being just as bad as appropriating knowledge that you don't have, and
right.
mimicking it. Doing it until what did you call it? Faking it until you make it. I think those were equally weighted.
No,
So
that,
so now
no. That's a good. That's actually remind me. Well, actually, since we're face streaming live, and of course my buddy Dan Hatelick, he just hopped on too. But it reminded me
hey
of
Dan,
my other buddy Mark, who this is only a few years ago. Let's say 5 years ago, whatever. He was worked out at the gym. He's a in his 60s now. He's a retired SEAL, but he's like a stud runner. I think he still holds the 1 mile record down at Coronado, for
holy
the one
crap,
mile sand run. You know what I mean? Like his
yeah,
record's held. He's a total stud. But him and his wife do that. That's their thing. They teach running clinics and they do. I mean, they're just fitness. They're total badasses, right? And it's hilarious because he did say to me one time after we did some workout together and there was running in it and I could barely keep up with it. I'm like, dude, what the hell? This guy's crushing it. And at the time, I was still in really, really decent running shape. I mean, I didn't
yeah.
run very often, but could still, run a 6 minute mile or do whatever, and and he just looked at me. He's like, well, Brian, who taught you how to run? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, who taught you how to run? And I was like, it's running. Like you just go
It's
run. I'm a
intuitive, yeah,
human,
yeah.
like I'm a human
But it's
being.
not.
And he's just like, okay, why don't you come on by on Saturday? And I learned more in one day, completely changed the way but that I was just that hit me so hard because it was like you're
But
right, it's a
take it
skill, but
take it
it's
further,
the
Brian.
point is
It's human performance.
but
So
it's
human performance is one that you can't fake.
yeah,
You see what I'm
but
trying to say?
that's what I'm saying. It's a
Yep,
skill. Running is
you're
a
exactly
skill.
right.
So if you weren't taught that skill, it's like I've built a table before. No one really taught me how to do that. We have YouTube videos, and I learned how to do stuff and learn it. So
Yeah.
if someone had shown me, would it have been a lot easier and much better?
And folks,
And
I
a
saw
little bit.
Brian's
And
shitty table.
could you?
I saw,
Could you? Well, that's what
but it's
people call
Brian's
it when I'm
table, so
not
I
in the
had to say
room.
it.
I don't know. So I
No, but
just,
look,
but
what you're
yeah, it's
talking about is you're talking about human performance. So human performance, including being a carpenter or a runner or anything
yeah,
else. Okay, those are the skills that if you fake, you'll die. And I'll give you a case in
right.
point. Okay. So how many people have gone to take a selfie and fallen off
Oh
of
yeah,
something
happens
or
all the
slipped
time.
from something?
Yeah.
And you're saying, oh, it's this, it's that, it's the other. It's you
Hmm.
are promoting your performance to a level where you don't maintain or attain it. And so you don't have it. And so you're up there doing that and you never consider the danger. Why? Because your ego tells you, you got this. It's a phone. You're thinking about the phone in the picture and you're so excited about the picture that you're never considering, hey, listen, I can't hold on that long. There's a thing called gravity. Again, we're back to the science. But the attorney in you would say, but you have every right to go up there. Step across that line that warns you not to do it. I'm telling you, Brian, you're onto something because we make mistakes when we exceed our human potential, and human potential can be psychological or it can be physical. And anytime that you purport to be something that you're not, you risk that. Now, there's a few people that have written books about it, and like you said,
Yeah,
some
yeah.
some blog geniuses that got into a certain thing. There's that lady that gets caught all the time in LA, and I don't remember her name, where she always tries to go in with the stars, and she, is invited but
Oh yeah, yeah,
uninvited.
yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
tackle her all the time, and everybody's got her photo. She just wants the attention, Brian. She's an
Right.
attention hound, right? But she's willing, and sometimes she does get in. So, what are the catecholamines in her brain? What do the electrochemical neurotransmitters tell her? If she's right, okay, we're in the mall. Do you remember you're in the mall and the guy goes, hey, taste this. And we go, hey, you don't even work here. And he goes, yeah, but that guy over there is doing the Coke taste test. So we go over to that guy. And now he says, taste this. And we taste it too. And you were right 3 times in a row. What does that do to your brain?
Oh
Now
yeah.
all of a sudden, Brian gets a new business card that says, I am the official Coke taster. By the way, folks, we saw the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile
We
on the
did
freeway
in
outside
Nashville.
of
Yeah,
Nashville.
yeah.
But do you get what I'm trying to say? It's easy to equate that we're a genius or an expert, and we'll drop the mic the first time we hit the bullseye. Brian, that doesn't make us an expert.
No, it doesn't, and I think that's more of a an interpersonal way of looking at it, right? So going like, all right, like you said, don't fight out of your league.
Exactly.
We've heard that
It's a
before,
weight
and
class for a reason, buddy.
that that opens up a whole nother conversation. But
Are we talking about my weight? No,
no,
Arthur.
I wasn't even actually referring to that. But when you get into weight class and
My ego.
divisions, that's also why we have a men's and women's division in sports.
No,
But
no, but
but
listen,
that's a
you're
whole
right,
nother. No,
aren't
no,
you?
no. I mean, but that's what I'm saying is that don't fight out of your league. So that's an interpersonal way I can look at it, right? I can look in the mirror. I can understand. All right, wait, where do I really fall in here? But that takes a little bit of self
Precisely.
awareness, and I have to actually evaluate. But I mean, even just because I like to apply this too, that's everything we just talked about, everything you brought up about ego and the voyage of discovery, which I like. That's actually the subtitle for my life. It would be Brian Marin Voyage of Discovery. Haven't found anything yet, Greg.
And the
So
worst part is that it's sponsored by a pharmaceutical company. Think about that, folks. Think about that.
it's waiting on a real important
A
blood
very
test.
important test.
But no, but and part of it is looking at that when we're taking in information. I'll give you a perfect example of me, because I was talking to you about it right before we started recording that Netflix did this. Well, it wasn't Netflix, it was someone else before that. It's finally on there now. I can watch it on Netflix because I have the subscription. I didn't pay for it before. So was this big
This is called
10-part
self-reporting, folks.
10-part series on the Chicago Bulls during the
Yeah, yeah.
90s. I grew up in Chicago, right? All this stuff. And it's funny because, like, I mean, it's emotional. Like, I'm tearing up during it, just remembering as a kid how exciting it was, and when Michael Jordan's father died and everything happened, like, you felt like you were a part of that because they were our team, right? Growing up, it was the biggest thing ever. We used to go downtown to Grant Park to the rallies in the summer, but then they talk a little bit, they get into a little bit about Michael Jordan's gambling and this, and I'm like, oh yeah, I see that. And then halfway through that episode, I'm going like, wait a minute, this guy was a horrible gambling addict. Like there was a lot going on. Now, I'm not buying any kind of conspiracy thing about his dad dying, but what I'm saying is I'm watching this going, yeah, because they're interviewing Michael Jordan and he's tearing up. It's this emotional thing. I'm going, Yeah, you're right. No, yeah, that doesn't matter. That's not a big deal that this happened and then this happened and then this happened and then this situation and then that situation and this much money was known and this much money and you're going like, dude, wait a minute. You have a problem. Like you have you may be able to afford it because you're making a lot
Yes,
of money, but you have a
that's a difference too. Yep.
you do have a problem. And it's so funny just even me knowing that and understanding, just looking at it, you get caught up in that going, oh yeah, I can really see that side. But no one during this documentary balanced it out with like, hey, here was this shady character that the feds
Yep.
found a check with Michael Jordan's name on it for him, which he lied about what it was for. Like that's showing intent, right? And that's a serious problem. Now that goes into dealing with that. That's, I get it, it's very different. He's rich and can afford that stuff, but you're kind of glossing over the fact that this is a serious issue that affected him, affected his family, affected his performance, and affected the team. So meaning as we're watching those documentaries or reading that information or reading that article, having that reaction, you have to personally balance that out with, right, and go, what would the other side say? What's the other side of that coin,
But
right?
there's even more there, Brian. What you just did is fully illustrated the lawyer against the scientist again. So you were approaching it from science standpoint. This is interesting. This needs to be followed up. These are anomalies. Generally, those anomalies lead to this type of frippery, this type of illegality, and to deaths and to, enforcement actions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side, you just alienated everybody that's a basketball fan. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And they're saying, hey, none of that matters. And we've met those guys, Brian. You and I have met
Right.
those guys that sports is more important than this, and you don't understand anything. And now they're going to be vociferous and maybe even violent because they want to back up their thing. And you just chose those facts out of all the facts. No, life is so full of facts that we can cherry pick just those facts
Mm-hmm.
that improve our argument. And that's where we started this with confirmation bias.
Yeah.
If you're so involved in confirmation bias, like for example, now in the news, and I won't go there because we'd open up to a whole bunch of other hours, but we should give ourselves an hour to that. You see something on the news and it turns your stomach because there's information and you look at it and you go, why? How could something like that happen? The way something like that happens is people gloss over the facts and only choose the facts that fight their argument. That's why Democrats and Republicans are so far apart right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
That's why the news can't follow a story to the fruition. And that's why when I read an article on the plane just a day ago, I've got to read about it. And no matter what the article is, the beginning, the preamble, let's call it,
Yeah.
the center of the article has a few facts, and then the end of it gives me all the incidents of violence that happened in the last 6 months, as if they're conflating them, but as if those are balancing acts I need to know. How about the old days when we were going to, I'll give you the facts, you decide what that means, and where an editorial, Brian, was a very rare thing. And who did it? It was the president of that, the president of CBS, and he would say, folks, I'm kind of worried about this. Now everybody has an opinion, right back to where we were at the beginning. And because they have social media, Brian, they think they're equal to everybody else's opinion.
Well, yeah, and the reporting of it is and editorializing of things can start to happen, and what
Sure.
happened is then people would get backlash for their editorials when they shouldn't, because it's an editorial. They're giving, hey, this is
Exactly.
my opinion. I'm not reporting, hey, this is what occurred at 11:57 a.m. So and so walked in. Like, no, I'm saying
Yep.
this is what I think of the situation. So that's okay, is right, if you're stating that up front. I get it, but that goes into, like you said, everyone's a journalist now. But I think that this,
So, Joe, all I'm
just
saying
taking
to
it to
finish
fake,
that
yeah,
argument,
yeah, yeah,
just don't rest your argument to me based on opinion testimony and something that you read where somebody said it, because that's called hearsay. If you have personal knowledge, tell me at the beginning of the conversation, I saw this. Now, if you're saying I heard this or I saw a video that somebody else produced, it's immediately suspect. And I'm not
right.
saying you have to live your life in a cone of silence. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm saying
A
life is
glass case of
beautiful. It's
emotion.
wonderful. Yeah, exactly. I'm saying go outside your door and find things out for yourselves. And that's what college is supposed to be about. That's what high school is supposed to be about. That's what Tinder and Grinder are supposed to be about. And you go out
It's
there and
just, I'm
experience
gonna
these things for
experience
yourself and
everything I
figure out
can.
what you
I'm
like, what you
just
don't like. My
I'm
wrist is
just gonna
still
come
hurting.
I'm just gonna come walking in your hotel room blindfolded, feeling my way around. Whatever
Exactly.
happens, happens. No, no.
But you get what I'm saying, because then
Well,
you know what's right for you. it's wrong to put your values on your kid, but your kid has to have
I
order until they
oh
can
that
decide on their own.
I agree about. You see with parents with their kids dressed up in political garb,
Yep.
regardless of what side it
Or
is. I
my
don't
kid's a
care.
vegan.
I
Do you
don't.
get what I'm
I
trying to
yeah.
say?
Exactly.
Until he
It's
finds a cheeseburger. You
yeah.
get what I'm trying to
It's you
say?
deciding. I don't know. You have to that's I'm very much against that. I've seen a lot of groups that do that. Um,
Yeah.
they're
So
not good.
we were at the
They're not good
airport.
groups.
No, they're not. We were at the airport, and I was taking a picture of the guy with the weed hat,
Hmm.
the 75-year-old guy that I sent
Yeah,
you
yeah,
that had
yeah.
the weed hat. And then I was doing the balancing act. I had to watch him a little longer, so I sat down to see if he really knew what that logo was because it said on Denver on the back, and I wanted to make sure he knew that that wasn't like a team. But as I listened for a minute, I figured out, yeah, he knew it. So his wife was walking around, and you know how we play the old people game. Hey, what? What did he say? So the guy from the back of that, and they were like a Kate Bueno or something. No habla, the name of the place. But the woman out there said, "Hey, was that bacon or avocado or something?" And she said, "Avocado." She said, "No animals," and she yelled it really loud. And she's wearing her, Birkenstocks, and
Oh
she
my
was
God.
just a epitome of what you would expect. And you wonder, how do people fall into that trap, Brian? We start believing something. We
Yes.
start following a movement.
Right.
Our dress
It's
changes, our
yeah.
words change,
It's a
and then we
religion.
immerse
So
ourselves in it.
it's not unlike religion, and I don't mean that
No.
negatively. It's just us belonging to a group with a single purpose, and this is what
Yep.
we believe. And
Yep.
the problem is, you can't interpret everything through those lenses. You have to be able to get comfortable being uncomfortable. But I do need to bring this up because
Uh-oh.
this is part of the reason why I came to you with this, and I completely forgot about the story. I didn't get pictures of this at the airport because they sat right next to me and all around me, but I'm sitting at the airport in Nashville, right, flying back on Saturday, and I had to my connecting. I was on Delta. It was through Minneapolis, right? So I was going to Minneapolis and then back to San Diego. So there's this group in there, and their family in some way. I don't think it was the dad. I think it might have been an uncle because they were using his first name, but it doesn't matter. So youngest in the group were like 20s, like maybe mid 20s. Then there was like someone in their 40s, and this guy was in their 50 or 60, kind of that range, right? So I saw them checking in, and I was like immediately called up, so I couldn't get photos of them right away either because I was pissed. And then I was like, you got to be kidding me, they're on my flight. So I'm sitting there, but I couldn't. Every time I brought my phone out to take a picture, the one guy was staring at me. So I'm like, don't want to start an altercation here. This would be great. But here's what caught my attention. They were talking about hunting, and they were talking about different like shotgun loads and this, that, and the other thing.
Right?
So I started looking at them. They all had these camo backpacks, and I don't remember the brand. I don't know too much, but it was a very nice bag. I'm looking at that bag. I'm like, that's like a $200-300 bag, easily $300 bag with that camouflage pattern. I know that's really high end. That's good
Yep.
stuff, right? So they all had that on. They had on this hat from some brand too. Same thing, like, okay, they got that going. Then I started looking at everything that they were wearing. Greg, the thing is about those bags and about their boots and about their pants and about those hats, they looked like they just stepped out of a sporting goods store, meaning not one thing on them had said they had ever been. Now, I don't know shit about hunting, right? I've never
Yeah.
hunted an animal before in my life, right? But I could look at them. I know enough just from my friends who hunt and talk about it and list stuff I've listened to and tried to learn. They're like, wait a minute, this seems off because not one of Greg, there wasn't a single scuff mark on their boots.
Right?
The hat that the older man was wearing was perfectly creased, brand new, still had the sticker underneath the
No
brim. I
sun
could feel
damage, right?
nothing. And
Not
I'm looking at
overwashed. Yep.
all of their stuff, and I'm going like, dude, you spend more on clothes at what just with what you're wearing than I've spent on clothes in the last like 2 years. You know what I'm saying? And they were talking about what they were doing, and the one guy in the room, no, you got to get up early. You're going to be up by 7 a.m. And I'm like, wait, first of all, 7 a.m. ain't early. We're already
They
done.
haven't
Already
traveled with
done,
us,
worked
man.
out. I'm dressed in the lobby
Exactly.
eating breakfast. Like,
I'm still a 2-3. You know what I'm
so,
saying?
but here's the thing. I was just looking at it, and I'm going like, that's it. They're acting as if they're doing the
The
fake it
as if.
fake
Yep.
fake it till you make it, like
Yep.
with all that stuff. But anyone, like wherever they were going this hunting at, if they showed up looking like that, anyone there would be like, hey, is this your first time? You get what I'm saying? So
Yep.
I'm curious, is that kind of what sparked part of this? But
Yeah.
just looking at that, but that's just normal, right? If I'm doing that
We
and I haven't,
project an
right,
image, Brian.
exactly, yeah.
We project an image to the world of how we want to be treated. We teach people how to treat
Yep.
us. The problem is that we don't sometimes ask other people, what do you think I'm projecting here? You see, because if you're convinced with your top knot and your douchebaggery that you're projecting this image and that you're somebody else, and the people that are looking at you and watching you are saying Panther sweat from Odeon, they're right.
Sixty
You have
percent of
to.
the time, it works every time.
My point exactly. So I have made the mistake, and you'll find this odd. I have made the mistake because I can't hear of inventing what it was that I think I heard, and then going on and carrying on a conversation. And then my good friend would come up to me, and my good friend would say, "That's not what he asked you," or "That's not what they said." And then I'm embarrassed, but I have to go back to ground zero and start again. All I'm telling you, Brian, give the time a distance, slow it down, measure things in context, yeah?
Yep.
And when you think that you're projecting with your words, your statements, your actions, one thing, take a poll. See exactly how that's coming across. Because if you're coming across by pushing me or threatening me or saying my opinion doesn't matter, then you're going to hurt me. And when my ego system is challenged, trust me, I'm going to fight back. That's psychological de-escalation
Right.
101. I
101
have a
there.
very fragile ego system. I think that I'm right. And anytime that you come up, it's like if your friend says, no, that's not it at all, but this, what he just did is crushed you. You were just, you're in the car, you're talking about a film that you liked, and you say some part of the film, and then somebody comes off the top rail and goes, nah, you missed the point completely. And they start saying their opinion, right? How do you feel, Brian? The rest of the day, you're just sitting there all frumped out. That's not fair. And that's what news does to us now. And that's what journos are doing to us now. And that's what, mean people do to us. Distance yourself from that. You don't need that. Your ego system is fragile enough as it is. Just do me a favor, throw a fact in there once in a while. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Make it a real story, and
Yeah.
then take stock in. Hey, are the words coming out of my mouth right now going to influence this in a bad way, or are they going to hurt somebody? You don't want to do that either.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of a good spot to wrap it up on. I just kind of get the points out of the the fake it till you make it, right? Is I think in the right
Are you
context.
trying to tell me something, Brian?
No, no.
Are,
What are we?
are you resigning?
What are
I
you
mean,
going to try and
exactly.
what would we try and fake? I wouldn't even.
Exactly.
That's to me
Doctor,
faking it is just
doctor,
well,
doctor, and doctor.
to me faking it is just that just burns too many calories. I'm just too
Exactly.
lazy. I'm just like, hey man, I have no idea what I'm doing right now.
Where am I?
What?
Who are all
What
these
is
people?
what is that velvet? It's
Exactly.
beautiful. No, but so the fake it till you make it, right? I think in terms of a positive outlook in some situations, it can be a good thing.
Psychological,
Just
sociological, you're
yeah.
not doing any harm. That's like when somebody says, hey, how does this dress look on me? It's okay to
It
you
looks
make it. You
great,
get what I'm
baby.
trying to say?
I
I
love
asked
it.
that to somebody yesterday. They weren't
I
very
know.
nice.
How come when
You know
I
what I'm
say that
saying?
to you, how come when I say that to you, you never give me a good
Exactly.
response?
Because you're in my room and it's like I feel really uncomfortable now. I need an adult,
Uh, all right, man. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook. For those of you who tuned in on the Facebook Live, I appreciate it. Your comments and stuff. We'll get to some more where we can take some questions live. Actually, if you're going to be around this time, 10 a.m. Pacific tomorrow, we should be on here with a really, really cool guest. That'll be a fun conversation. But everyone else listening, hey, don't forget, we also have the Patreon site. Don't forget to follow us along on our social media. Please share it with your friends if you got a minute. Scroll down there, give us a like, a thumbs up, or hit that 5-star button if you feel so inclined on your whatever podcast player. It helps get it out there. And actually, our guest Greg, that we're recording tomorrow, found us because it popped up on his suggestions on Spotify, which that's a good thing. That means and he
I know
liked
none
it.
of
So
those words.
well, it just means that
I'll let you handle that part.
our podcast was suggested to someone who actually then liked it. So that's
Folks, I,
not
I, I
by
still
us,
have
by
buyer's remorse
yeah.
for my new computer. Real
What?
quick funny story, Brian.
Oh, we
Before
got to
you,
tell everyone.
before you
Greg is
break
a
it. So Brian and I are in this 5-day mission with a day in, day out. So it's a
that is
7-day.
brutal.
We're doing these brutal hours, and after the surveillance,
building
we're
a course and
downloading
building
stuff and
everything.
building
Yeah,
something that has never
been
created
done.
before.
Yeah.
And so I believe it was Wednesday at like 1800 or something. And I promised Brian something. I'll have the first cut for you by this time. My computer now. Imagine seeing 2 images on it. and then it would shake, and then it would shake, and it would go dim, and it would go bright, and it would shake.
Oh my
So the
God.
first thing was I thought I was having a stroke, but
Stroke
I'd
it
already dialed
naturally.
911. You know what I'm saying?
Is that better
And then I
call
go,
Brian?
let's call Marin. And so he looked at it and he goes, I don't know what that is, but that's effed, you know. But not only, folks, did it take everything on the computer and just lock it out, it destroyed all of it. So we had to rebuild it again. So you talked about some scare. So what I'm trying to say here, if you're trying to reach me on my phone or my computer, be gentle. I'm still
Just
learning.
give
I'm
it a
still
minute. Give it a
typing out of
minute.
my weight class.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in. And don't forget that training changes behavior.